Back everyone. As most of you know, the iPhone 13 Pro just ended up coming out officially. So let's go and take a look at it against the iPhone 6s and see which specific iPhone you should go and pick up. Now, obviously, the 13 Pro is better. I will leave some iPhones linked in the description. If you want to get them from there, you can and help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely see the iPhone 6s, a much smaller iPhone, 4.7-inch IPS panel here versus the 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED panel on the iPhone 13 Pro. So not only are you getting a little bit of a bigger phone, heavier for sure, bigger phone, thicker battery, all that good stuff, you're also getting a way better display, but also 120 hertz refresh rate on the iPhone 13 Pro, which is something that's really cool. So automatically you're getting a much better, feeling and looking phone on the iPhone 13 Pro for sure. In terms of thinness and thickness, you can definitely tell much thicker phone on the 13 Pro, but it's worthwhile because you are getting a bigger battery and different things like that. So the 13 Pro definitely wins in terms of, I guess, the premiumness feeling of it. And on the back, we have aluminum back on the iPhone 6s, where we have a frosted glass back on the iPhone 13 Pro. So you're definitely getting a much better feeling phone, in my opinion, on the 13 Pro. Also, just look at the camera sensors. You have a single camera here, a triple camera setup here with a LiDAR sensor, and the camera sensors on the 13 Pro are massive. It is pretty crazy how big of a camera setup that is. So you're definitely getting some improvements there. Lightning ports at the bottom, headphone jack on the iPhone 6s, power button on the side, IP certification on the iPhone 13 Pro, no IP certification on the iPhone 6s, but I still think that's totally okay. It's a 2015 phone. It's not going to have all the bells and whistles of a 13 Pro in my opinion. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up on the outside for the most part. Now there is a little bit of a difference in terms of software. So the iPhone 6s, and I don't know why every time I talk about software, this thing comes up. It's so crazy. But with the iOS updates right now, the iPhone 6s is getting iOS 15, it's getting all these updates and everything, but it's pretty much outdated when it comes down to everything else. It's not going to be getting too many updates after this. I think it's going to be done with iOS 15. So that's a pretty sad thing. But the iPhone 13 Pro is going to be here, and it's going to be here for a while. You're going to be getting a lot more software updates from something like an iPhone 13 Pro than on an iPhone 6s. So when it comes down to it, and when we talk about the longevity and all these things, the iPhone 13 Pro is definitely the better one when it comes down to it. Do you want an iPhone that's going to still be supported with software? Obviously. So the 13 Pro is definitely the better way to go. The 6S is on its last leg, got a lot of updates. I'm pretty surprised about it, but the iPhone 13 Pro is the better one when it comes down to it. So in terms of that covers it up here. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 6s has that Apple A9 chip inside of it with 2 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 13 Pro has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go and see which one is a faster iPhone between both of these. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background for the most part, except for that one. So let's get into it. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. And definitely faster on the 13 Pro. Music, 3, 2, 1. And the 13 Pro again was faster. iPhone 6s quite a bit behind for sure. So that took a little bit of a minute, but it's totally okay. It's an older phone. Let's go into their app stores. 3, 2, 1. And unfortunately, I did accidentally click into it a little bit too hard, and I activated Force Touch on the 6s. So we'll just go ahead and load into it, but I do want to see how fast that is when we go ahead and scroll through. So scrolling through, you can see definitely a little bit more choppier on the iPhone 6s. Totally okay, it's an older phone, but that pretty much covers it up there. Let's go and hit on photos, 3, 2, 1. 13 Pro is definitely faster. Hopping out of these animations, let's go and get into something like, mail, 3, 2, 1. 13 Pro again is faster. iPhone 6s a bit behind. Clock, 3, 2, 1. And of course, it didn't match up properly. So let's go and hop out of here. Now we have a bunch of these third-party applications. Actually, we don't for some reason on the iPhone 13 Pro or the 6s. So let's get into some other ones. Let's do books, 3, 2, 1. 13 Pro definitely far faster there. Calculator, 3, 2, 1. Again, faster and smoother to open on the iPhone 13 Pro. Camera, 3, 2, 1. And go into contacts, 3, 2, 1. Again, faster on the iPhone 13 Pro. We can go into FaceTime, 3, 2, 1. Again, to even activate it was faster onto the iPhone 13 Pro. Files, 3, 2, 1. Again, 13 Pro is faster by quite a bit, so you're kind of seeing a reoccurring trend here, if I do say so myself. The iPhone 13 Pro is consistently being the faster one pretty much in every single area, and that's exactly as we expected. When we have an older iPhone like an iPhone 6s, we don't want it to be faster than this phone. We want it to be slower than the iPhone 13 Pro because it's supposed to be slower. This is the newer one. You're spending more money on this phone, so it's expected. Now, at the same time, I think the iPhone 6s is as expected. It's not slower than I thought. It's almost exactly as fast as I thought it was going to be, when you're comparing this type of an older phone to this type of a newer phone, you can see that you're seeing some pretty big differences. You're going to be getting a much faster phone from the iPhone 13 Pro. So when it comes down to it, I would definitely recommend picking up an iPhone, 13 Pro just for the performance sake. But I do think after all that being said, the iPhone 6s is still pretty surprising. I'm actually still pretty happy about this phone. So when it comes down to the performance segment, the iPhone 13 Pro is definitely faster. The iPhone 6s isn't super far behind it. So in terms of performance, that covers it up here. Now let's go and hit on the cameras. Now on the back, like I mentioned before, triple camera setup on the iPhone 13 Pro. The iPhone 6s is a single camera setup. Now you have a wide angle lens here, but you have a wide, ultra wide, and telephoto lens on the iPhone 13 Pro. On top of that, on the front of both these cameras, 4K at 60 on the front of the 13 Pro, only 720p on the front of the iPhone 6s. Now, in terms of the camera quality, like I've mentioned before, I mean, there's no competition here. The iPhone 13 Pro is going to be the better camera setup in every single angle, whichever way you look at it. I think the iPhone 6s camera was good when it came out, and this was actually the first iPhone to bring 4K video. So those types of things are very, very important to remember for the whole entire lifespan of the iPhone 6s. The fact that this phone, has continued to get software support, but on top of that, it was the first iPhone to bring 4K and a lot of other things too. But the iPhone 13 Pro, I mean, is there's no competition. You have portrait mode, 4K at 60, ultra wide and telephoto lenses, a much better camera, a much better video quality, all that good stuff. But you're also lacking things that have been around for a while, like portrait mode. You don't have it on the iPhone 6s. You don't have the ability of doing ProRes video or ProRAW video. You have that on the iPhone 13 Pro. So these are massive features that the iPhone 13 Pro has that the iPhone 6s doesn't have. I still think, in terms of camera quality, the 6S isn't too bad, but the 13 Pro definitely wins in terms of that. So in terms of that, that covers it up here. And to be honest, when it comes down to both of these, right, I still think the iPhone 6S is a pretty interesting phone. I don't think it's better than the iPhone 13 Pro by any means. I think the 13 Pro is the better phone at every single area you're ever going to look at it. But I'm still surprised how good of a performing and feeling phone the 6S is. I mean, it was much slower than the 13 Pro. It didn't have the best camera. It's still battery life is not good in this phone at all. But when you actually look at the actual performance of this phone, you look at different things like that, I am overall pretty happy with the iPhone 6s. It aged exactly how I was expecting it to age, and that's one of the most important things about this phone. Now with the 13 Pro, this is definitely the best iPhone you can pick up, like I've mentioned. It is the cream of the crop, whatever you want from an iPhone, and this thing can pretty much do it. It can handle everything you throw at it, and that's one of the most important things about an iPhone. When you get an iPhone like this, you want it to be up to par. It's $1,000 phone, but when you look at the market and you look at all the other phones that are starting to appreciate in value, things are going to 1100, 1200, 1500 for some phones. This is actually a really decent deal. It's not a deal, it's still a lot of money, but it's a very good phone and I'm a huge fan of it. So when it comes down to both, if you have an iPhone 6s, this is a tremendous upgrade, but also going from an iPhone 6s to an iPhone 11 is a massive upgrade. Even an iPhone 6s to an iPhone 10, that's a massive upgrade as well. So I'd recommend, going to those iPhones at some point, but that pretty much covers up this comparison. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I got you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.